The year is 1251. The medieval world is a jagged collection of broken states, but the map is about to be cauterized by fire. Imagine a single, golden spark igniting in the dark heart of the Asian steppe. That spark is the will of one man, Mongol Khan. For decades, the scattered tribes of Mongolia were nothing more than the people of the felt tents. But Genghis Khan forged them into an elemental disaster. Now, his grandson, Monk, has emerged from a bloody succession crisis to claim the throne of the largest continuous empire in human history. Monk is not a man of compromise. He is a man of industrial-scale slaughter. From his stone capital at Karakoram, he looks at the world not as a collection of nations, but as a list of targets. He has three gargantuan objectives: the Islamic Caliphate of Iraq, the ancient citadels of Syria, and the crown jewel of civilization, the Song Dynasty of China. By now, the Mongols had already turned the cities of northern China into fields of bones. The western Xia were annihilated. The Yuan Dynasty was a memory, but the Song remained a fortress. They were the wealthiest nation on earth, a superpower that dedicated 80% of its astronomical budget to a military network of rivers, mountains, and iron-willed soldiers. To crack this shell, Monk turned to his younger brother, a 38-year-old prince named Kublai. Kublai was the eccentric black sheep in the house of Genghis. While his cousins drank fermented mare's milk and dreamed of simple plunder, Kublai surrounded himself with the ghosts of dead philosophers. His court was a cosmopolitan laboratory, a melting pot of Han Chinese advisors, Persian astronomers, and Tibetan monks. Kublai was a cinephile of culture. He studied the grand, cinematic history of China, obsessed with the idea that an empire could be ruled by law instead of just the sword. He studied Confucianism and Buddhism, looking for the secret to the mandate of heaven. But to the traditionalists back in the steppe, this wasn't wisdom. It was a weakness. They whispered that this scholar prince was being seduced by the very people he was meant to destroy. In 1253, the test finally came. Monk ordered Kublai to conquer the Dali kingdom, the strategic backdoor to the Song dynasty. This was a land of jagged mountains and vertical narrow passes. Kublai's campaign was a masterclass in military efficiency, but it was the ending that shocked the Mongol world. When the city of Dali finally fell, the traditionalist generals prepared their blades for the customary massacre. They expected the streets to run red. But Kublai did the unthinkable. He stopped them. Influenced by his Confucian advisors, he spared the population. To the Mongol nobility, this was a betrayal of their warrior's soul. They saw Kublai as a man who had been conquered by Chinese mercy before he had even finished his conquest. The seeds of a civil war were planted in the soil of that mercy. By 1258, the games of philosophy were over. Monk Khan personally led the main Mongol horde into southern China, determined to end the Song once and for all. Kublai commanded the eastern flank. But the south was not the steppe. The invincible Mongol horsemen found themselves trapped in a humid, vertical nightmare. This was a land of rice paddies, deep rivers, and mountain fortresses that seemed to reach the clouds. At the Jiayu fortress, the mountain of fish, the Mongol iron radiance hit a wall it could not melt. For months, the army rotted. Scorching heat, dysentery, and relentless Song crossbow fire turned the siege into a mass grave. Then, the impossible happened. In 1259, amidst the filth and fire of the siege, Monk Khan died. The great unity of the empire vanished with his final breath. The music of conquest stopped abruptly. The generals stood in the torrential rains of the south, realizing that the empire wasn't just losing its leader, it was losing its mind. Monk's death triggered a civil war for the soul of the Mongol people. In the capital of Karakoram, the traditionalists rallied around Kublai's younger brother, Erik Bok. He was the true Mongol, a man of the steppe, a man who believed the empire should remain a nomadic predator. But Kublai was done playing the subordinate. In 1260, backed by his massive Han Chinese power base, he organized his own council in Xanadu. He was declared Great Khan in a ceremony that looked more like a Chinese coronation than a Mongol election. He even declared his own era, the Zhongtong, a move of pure imperial defiance. The resulting Toluid Civil War was a fratricidal bloodbath. It wasn't just two brothers fighting for a throne, it was two worldviews colliding. Kublai utilized a multi-ethnic coalition of Han, Jurchen, and Korean troops to battle his own kin. For 4 long years, the steppe was a slaughterhouse. Karakoram, the symbol of Genghis Khan's glory, was reduced to a ruined ghost town. In 1264, a broken and starving Arak Bok finally surrendered to Kublai and Xanadu. Kublai was now the uncontested Great Khan, but he was the master of a shattered house. The Western Khanates had moved on, and the unified Mongol Empire was dead. Kublai looked at the ruins of his brother's world and chose to build a new one. He abandoned the steppe forever and moved his capital to the ruins of northern China. There, he began the most ambitious construction project in human history, Kambalik, the city of the Khan. Designed by Han architects using ancient geomancy, the city was a masterpiece of massive walls and ancestral temples. Kublai wasn't just building a city, he was claiming the mandate of heaven. He established a new social order, placing Mongols at the top, but used Central Asian Simurin and Han advisors to run the gears of the state. He legalized paper money, protected merchants, and invited the greatest minds on the planet to his court. He was building a cosmopolitan superpower. In 1271, the grandson of Genghis Khan officially gave his new world a name, the Great Yuan Dynasty. Yuan, meaning great, is the heavenly and primal. He was no longer a nomadic warlord. He was the emperor of China. But beneath the splendor of the new dynasty, a poison was brewing. Kublai had spent his life trying to bridge the gap between the steppe and the city, but the bridge was beginning to buckle. In 1262, a Han official named Litan, a man Kublai had trusted with his life. Though the uprising was crushed, the psychological damage was permanent. The Sinophile Khan, who had once spared the people of Dali out of love for philosophy, felt the cold, sharp sting of betrayal. His enthusiasm for the Han elite evaporated, replaced by a dark, calculated paranoia. He realized that the people he was trying to emulate might be the very people who would eventually destroy him. To survive, he could no longer be a benevolent philosopher king. He had to become a monster. He looked toward the horizon, toward the final barrier, the Song Fortress of Xiangyang. This city was the gateway to the Yangtze River. If it fell, China died. If it held, Kublai's dream of a Yuan empire would become his tomb. Kublai stood on the balcony of his new palace, gripping his Mongol saber until his knuckles turned white. He looked at the massive machines being assembled in the courtyard, the Hui Pao, skeletal giants of wood and rope capable of shattering mountains. He whispered a single command into the night wind. The final war had begun, and this time, there would be no mercy.